All right, let's get to another piece of very important news, which is on the booster shot. This is something we've been covering very closely. There's been a lot of bureaucratic warfare here in Washington. So recall, a couple of weeks ago, Biden administration, President Biden himself, comes out and says, we are recommending booster shots for every American 6 months after they've been fully vaccinated. Huge policy change. Immediately, we begin to see pushback within the FDA itself. There's rancor, there's clear and leaked stories in the New York Times saying, actually, some people within the administration and the FDA specifically reject that claim. Then, 2 high-level FDA officials themselves put in their resignations. They say they're leaving in a couple of months. Then, Krystal, they sign on to a public letter in a medical journal coming out against the administration's own booster policy. Now, the FDA panel, let's put this up there on the screen, has gone ahead and recommended Pfizer's COVID booster doses for people who are 65 and older, but rejected third shots for the general population. I think this is an incredibly important story because it shows to you the fact that getting ahead of your skis on public messaging and then having to pull back just creates more confusion, more questions. It actually probably does more in order to boost people's fears that they're never gonna have to not get a booster or whatever. And it just projects a general level of complete and total incompetence whenever it comes to this. And that really is beginning to seem what it looks like because we don't even have the full evidence that we necessarily need on the booster that we even see.
Not even close.
This is from the New York Times. Let's put this up there. And I think they meant this as some sort of affirming thing. Quote, researchers in Israel reported that a third dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID vaccine can enhance protection in adults older than 60 for at least 12 days.
Wow.
A result that is unsurprising and does not indicate long-term benefit. 12 days?
And only for adults 60 and older. That's not even for the general population.
So, why? And remember, these are free, and Pfizer has been pushing for boosters for the entire general population for a long time. I can't help but wonder what's going on there. But to have it so starkly laid out, and again, I think the New York Times meant it see, you get 12 whole. I'm like, 12 days? I'm like, that's all you're getting here? 12 days? Does that really worth it in terms of the body? I mean, look, I just think, again, and I think I'm gonna do something on this tomorrow, just the whole way that we have had our discussion about this, about the future, the indemnity of COVID and more, is just a total disaster. And I think that this just, again, goes to show that these public health people, they are always trying to project themselves onto the public, being like, where's the public? Let's try and message this. Oh, we gotta scare them. Oh, we gotta get ahead of this and talk about boosters, when the science doesn't necessarily even back up the booster shot that we even see. So you put it all together, I do think it's a big, big disaster. And a lot of people have a lot of questions. Some people don't know, should I take it? Should I not? What am I supposed to do? Coming up on that 6-month mark. What exactly is going on?
Yeah, and it's not that that having a third booster shot is like a high risk for you.
Right.
It just seems like, based on the data, which is limited at this point, by the way, it's just not really worth it. There are concerns about fueling vaccine hesitancy because it plays into this narrative that this is really just about making these companies a bunch of money. And in fact, the CNBC article was kind of incredible to read because they include in there this line after it's the panel voted down giving the booster shots to everyone. They said, Pfizer's stock closed down 1.3%, while shares of BioNTech fell 3.6%.
There you go.
Very revealing, very revealing about what some of the real motivations were here. And so, yeah, I think you had this dynamic where the political people, and I include Fauci as effectively a politician at this point, the political people thought, this will be a way to give people even more comfort, make them feel even better. And there's some data out of Israel that says it might be a good thing, who knows, but let's just go for it. And then the actual scientists and the 2 that resigned at the FDA, they were high level in the vaccine division.
Exactly.
So in the relevant division, they were like, this is really not a good look and we don't feel comfortable staying here, which would have been a huge story under the Trump administration. So when they all get together and this advisory panel votes about requiring boosters or pushing boosters to the general population, it wasn't close. They voted against it 16-2. So it really does show you that the Biden administration thought this was the right move politically, but clearly the scientific community did not agree and did not ultimately back them up. which is significant for an administration that's constantly said, we're going to follow the science, we're going to follow the science. And, that their base is very interested in following the science. There are literally like yard signs out across Washington, D.C. saying we trust the science, follow the science, we love Dr. Fauci, all of that. So it is a pretty revealing and significant moment. There was another piece of news, highly significant, that came across this morning that I wanted to bring to you guys, and I'm just reading from the New York Times right now. COVID vaccine prompts a strong immune response in younger children, Pfizer says. So vaccinated kids aged 5 to 11 showed evidence of protection against the virus. Now that data is going to be reviewed by the FDA before children can be inoculated. This, to me, is a much more important direction to go in because yes, kids have much lower likelihood of severe disease from coronavirus and much lower likelihood of death from coronavirus. But you still have a lot of parents, I include myself in this, who are anxious to see their kids protected against this thing. Having that population also inoculated is also going to do a huge service in terms of limiting the spread to other unvaccinated populations. So this is encouraging news based on what we know. What they've found so far is that it's been shown to be safe and highly effective. That news should help ease anxiety. And effectively what they found is that there are very low risks in terms of like negative health consequences for young children 5 and older. And that immune response that you expect to see from the vaccine is triggered. They haven't actually done the research to show how effective it's going to be against protecting against any infection, severe disease, and ultimately death. But it shows it's safe. It shows it seems to be doing what it's indicated to do. And so now that will go to the FDA and the FDA will evaluate it, which is very encouraging. It's been weird to me that they've been really pushing the booster direction, which seems like it's not going to do anything, and being sort of lackadaisical and slow on getting this approved so that children can be protected here as well. So encouraging news on that front.
Yeah, and then once you get to that point, children who want their parents who want their children to be vaccinated can, probably millions will do so, and that will only increase our herd immunity.
Exactly.
Which will make it what? So that we can all go back to normal. And so I think that is really, personally, I think we should have been doing that for a long time. But
yes,
what it is that all of this comes together. I think the Biden administration got way over their skis on the booster. Now they're having to roll it back. The unclarity of their position feeds into this narrative of chaos. They tried to get ahead of that with their vaccine mandate in terms of large employers. We'll still see. But as we continue to see in the polling, he is underwater on COVID. Now, as you point to, people are not going to remember now. In 2022, they're going to remember what exactly the situation is then. And if it were him, what he needs to do is try to make sure not to embrace necessarily a COVID zero policy, but to try and make it so that A, you reach vaccine or herd immunity. Well, it's possible anyway. In terms of, he wants to burst the overall number of immunity, number one, and number two, needs clarity from the public on what the overall end goal is.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is his most important thing that he needs to do.
If people feel more comfortable next year,
yes,
they feel safer.
They will vote for him, I agree.
If they feel like my kid's going to be able to go to school and they're not going to get pulled out for quarantine every other week, which I can tell you as an all-in soccer mom, that's all that parents are talking about is like, has your kid been quarantined yet? Right. And how long are they out? And where'd you go to get the test? In my little town in King George County, they just had to do a free clinic for parents to get their kids tested so they could go back to school. And that's another thing that's really irritating to me is that the tests you have to use to prove to the school that your kid is safe to go back after they've had a positive COVID exposure, that sucker costs like $100.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, even if you aren't worried about your kids getting really, really sick, there are major life disruptions that are happening right now that are deeply unsettling to people. And in the same way I have compassion for people who feel like they've been screwed over by every institution that they've ever even thought to trust, I also have compassion for people who are like, 1 in 500 Americans have died of COVID, and I'm freaked out, and I'm wearing the double mask, and I want everybody I know to be vaccinated, and sure, I'll go in on the booster shot. So Anyway, that's the latest. Booster shots look like they, for the general population, don't make a lot of sense. It's looking like they're moving forward with vaccines for children 5 and up, and that's where we are. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.